I gave up everything to help my family, my time, my money, my peace. They used me like I didn't matter. But the day they crossed the line, I didn't cry, I fought back. And what I did next? No one saw it coming. You'll want to hear the whole story. When I first moved back home, I told myself it was just temporary. 3 months max. I had just graduated top of my class and landed a well-paying remote job with a creative agency. Graphic design had always been my thing, layouts, typography, color psychology, it all clicked for me. So when the offer came through, I felt like things were finally lining up. I could have moved straight into an apartment, but I wanted to be smart. Austin rents are no joke, and saving a bit before committing made sense. My parents, Karen and Rick, were thrilled at first. Mom's a retired nurse, and Dad still works as a mechanic at a local shop. They said, "You'll always have a home here, and take your time, honey." And honestly, it felt kind of nice to come back to something familiar. At first, everything was fine. Peaceful. I set up my workspace in the corner of my old bedroom upstairs, cooked dinner sometimes, and kept to myself mostly. But then my older brother Daniel started visiting every weekend with his wife, Melissa, and their 3 kids, Ivy, who's 6, Cody 4, and Bella, the youngest, barely 2. That's when things started shifting. Slowly, subtly, but definitely shifting. Every Friday evening, they'd roll in like a storm, strollers, toys, loud voices, and suddenly, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. What I noticed right away was how different my parents became when Daniel arrived. My quiet, reasonable mom turned into a doting grandma with a high-pitched voice, and my dad, who normally fell asleep watching car shows, would suddenly be in the backyard playing soccer with Cody like he was 20 years younger. Isn't Ivy just brilliant? Mom would beam during dinner. Her teacher says she might skip a grade. Cody scored 2 goals in his game. Dad would add proudly. And Bella? Oh, everyone loved to talk about Bella's adorable tantrums like they were some kind of performance art. Meanwhile, I'd sit there quietly, eating mashed potatoes, wondering if anyone was going to ask me about the new client I landed or the award I got last month for my web design work. But no one did. Not once. It wasn't a new feeling, though. Growing up, it was always like this. Daniel was the golden boy. When he got into college, my parents took out $80,000 in loans without blinking. He needed books? They bought him a laptop, new clothes, a car. But when it came to me, "Sorry, honey, we're still paying off your brother's debt," Mom had said when I brought up college costs. So I worked part-time through school, hunted for scholarships, and hustled my way to a full ride. No debt, no help, just grit. But I never brought it up. I never made them feel bad. I thought maybe, just maybe, coming home now, accomplished and independent, they'd see me in a new light. I was wrong. One evening, everything shifted for good. I was making tea when I overheard Mom on the phone in the kitchen. "Oh no. Daniel, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice soft. "Of course you can stay here. Don't you worry about a thing." I stood frozen. A moment later she turned around and smiled like she hadn't just dropped a bomb. "That was your brother," she said. "He and Melissa are having a rough time. Daniel lost his job, and Melissa's still not working. They're going to stay with us for a little while." "How long is a little while?" I asked. "Just until they get back on their feet," she said like it was no big deal. "Families sticks together." I should have said something then. Pushed back. But I didn't. Instead, I bit my tongue. Again. By Saturday morning, Daniel's family had moved in. Literally. 3 carloads of furniture, toys, clothes, kitchen stuff. It was like they didn't plan to leave. Ever. My room? Taken. They made it the kids' room so they'd have space to play. I got moved into the laundry room, where there was just enough space to squeeze in a mattress between the dryer and the wall. No windows. 1 outlet. That was my new home. The next few weeks were a blur of noise and exhaustion. Melissa started acting like I was just available. All the time. "Can you just keep an eye on the kids while I run to the store? Do you mind watching them while I shower? Leah, you're already home, right? Could you just..." It started small, but before long, I was babysitting every weekend, sometimes straight through from Friday evening to Sunday night. They'd go out grocery shopping, brunch, little date nights, and I'd be stuck with three hyper kids screaming, breaking crayons, spilling juice, pulling on my hair. And still, I was paying bills. The water bill went up. So did electricity. The monthly total hit $650 by the second month. I brought it up once at dinner, carefully, not wanting to cause drama. I've been covering all the utilities since they moved in, I said. But the costs are getting high. Maybe we can figure out a fair split. Melissa slammed her fork down. Are you serious right now? She snapped. We've lost everything. And you're counting pennies? My parents didn't say a word in my defense. Family helps family, Mom finally muttered, like she was reading it off a poster. I nodded, biting my tongue so hard it hurt. That night, I stayed up staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I'd ended up like this, a full-time graphic designer, unpaid nanny, and invisible daughter, all in one. But I said nothing. I endured, because that's what I'd always done. But that was about to change. I just didn't know it yet. The weeks dragged on, and each one felt heavier than the last. I woke up each day to the sound of screaming kids, sticky floors, and no privacy. My work hours blurred into babysitting shifts, and honestly, I started to forget what peace felt like. Melissa made it worse. She acted like this was her house now. She'd sprawl out on the couch with her phone while I ran after her kids, like I didn't have a full-time job. She never said thank you. Not once. Daniel? He barely looked up from his laptop. Said he was job hunting, but half the time I caught him watching YouTube videos or scrolling Twitter. He wore the same hoodie for days. The only time he spoke to me was to complain about slow Wi-Fi or ask where something was in the kitchen. I tried to remind myself that this was temporary, that they'd move out eventually. But deep down, I knew better. They weren't going anywhere. Not without a push. Then came the night that broke me a little more. I had just finished a 10-hour workday and was about to settle in with a book when Melissa came barging into the laundry room. Didn't even knock. Hey, she said casually, Daniel and I are going out. Mom and Dad are coming with us. Can you watch the kids? I blinked at her. It's already past 7. Ivy's watching a movie. Bella's napping. It's easy. Just give Cody some cereal or something if he gets hungry. She was already putting on her earrings. I wanted to say no. I really did. But the words wouldn't come. Not fast enough, anyway. So they left. All of them. I spent the evening making grilled cheese for 3 kids who refused to sit still. Bella woke up screaming from her nap. Ivy kept changing the TV channel, and Cody dumped a full bowl of cereal on the carpet. I ended the night on my knees with paper towels, trying not to cry. When they came back at midnight, laughing like they were teenagers again, I didn't say a word. Just shut the door and lay down on my lumpy mattress in the laundry room. That was the first time I seriously thought about leaving. But something held me back. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was habit. Or maybe I just didn't know how to walk away yet. Then Nina called. Nina was my closest friend from college. Funny, loyal, always full of ideas. She knew something was wrong from the sound of my voice before I even told her anything. Leah, she said, I signed up for this weekend digital art workshop in Santa Fe. There's a gallery showcase, speakers, networking stuff. You need to come with me. Seriously. My heart jumped. Santa Fe. A whole weekend of design, creative minds, and silence. Just thinking about it gave me goosebumps. I don't know, I mumbled. Don't know, she snapped. When's the last time you did something for yourself? She had a point. I thought about it for a day, and then said yes. I told my family that Friday morning over breakfast. I'll be gone this weekend, I said, keeping my voice light. Nina and I are driving to Santa Fe for an art event. Just Saturday and Sunday. There was a silence. Then Mom frowned. This weekend? Yes. Melissa looked up from her phone, already annoyed. That doesn't work. We need you to watch the kids. We're all going to Uncle Brent's birthday party in Dallas. I looked at her, stunned. This is the first I'm hearing about that. It's been planned for weeks, she said like it was my fault for not knowing. We assumed you'd be home. I shook my head. Well, I'm not. I made plans too. Unbelievable, she muttered. Mom chimed in next. Leah, don't be difficult. This is family. Uncle Brent hasn't seen the kids in years. We've all been looking forward to this. I didn't know, I repeated. Well, now you do, Dad said. You can reschedule your little art thing. I laughed. I couldn't help it. No, I can't. I'm going. The shift in the room was instant. It was like I'd cursed out loud. Melissa stood up, face red. So, what? You're just gonna abandon your nieces and nephew? They're not my kids. They might as well be, with how much you help. Exactly, I snapped. And I'm done. This weekend? I'm going. You'll have to figure something else out. Mom's voice rose, sharp and cold. If you walk out that door, Leah, don't bother coming back. I stood there, heart pounding. Good, I said quietly. Thanks for finally saying it out loud. And then I left the room. They followed me to the laundry room, yelling over each other, telling me how ungrateful I was, how selfish, how I didn't understand what family meant. Melissa accused me of trying to ruin their lives. My parents said I was turning my back on everyone who ever helped me. I didn't answer. I just packed. I threw what I could into my duffel bag, laptop, chargers, notebooks, clothes, the essentials. Before I left, I looked at all of them standing in the hallway. Angry, shocked, betrayed. You think I'm the villain, I said, because I finally said no. But I've been saying yes for years, and none of you noticed. Then I walked out the door and didn't look back. The drive to Santa Fe felt like freedom. I remember gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white, while Nina played music and talked about workshop schedules. I could barely focus. My mind kept going back to the look on my mother's face, the way Melissa had yelled, the silence from Daniel. But I didn't regret leaving. Not for a second. That weekend was like breathing for the first time in months, maybe years. The gallery was beautiful, glass walls, soft lights, bold colors. The air buzzed with ideas and energy. I met artists, designers, even a creative director from LA who gave me her card and asked me to send over my portfolio. We drank strong coffee, talked about art and life, and the kind of careers we wanted to build. No one asked me to change a diaper. No one screamed in my face. I felt like me again. But even in that peaceful space, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, all of them from my family. Mom, I hope you're proud. Your brother and Melissa had to miss the party because of you. Melissa, you seriously just walked out? You're dead to me. Dad, you need to apologize. This behavior is unacceptable. Daniel, nothing. Not a single word from him. Not then. Not after. I didn't reply to any of them. When I got back to Austin Sunday night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Nina's. She gave me her guest room, made me tea, and didn't ask questions. That night, lying on a clean bed with actual silence around me, I made a decision. I was done. Not just done helping. Not just done living in that house. I was done being their backup plan, their invisible support system, the one who always bent without breaking. I was going to take everything back. First, I reached out to a lawyer I knew from an old client project. Her name was Jordan, sharp as a blade and twice as quick. I told her everything about the house, the living situation, the money, the emotional toll. She asked me one question that changed everything. Is the house in your name? I nodded. See, what no one in my family had ever bothered to ask was what I did with my inheritance from Grandma Louise. I was 20 then, and while Daniel blew his share on vacations and a shiny new car, I used mine as a down payment on the house. It was my name on the deed. My savings that had made it possible. My parents never questioned it. They just assumed it was still theirs. Jordan smiled when I told her. Then you have every right to evict them. I didn't hesitate. She helped me draft the notice. It was cold, legal, emotionless. I printed it out, signed the bottom, and gave it to a process server to deliver. I wasn't going to do it myself. I couldn't. But part of me wanted to see their faces when it happened. They had 30 days to move out. The fallout was instant. I got the first phone call the next morning. It was Mom, her voice shaking. Leah, what is this? What are you doing? You told me not to come back, I said calmly. So, I'm making it official. But this is your home. You can't just kick us out. It's not your home anymore. It's mine. It always was.
She cried. She begged.
She yelled. She guilt. Every tactic she'd ever used before, she tried again. I listened for a minute. Then I hung up. A few hours later, Melissa sent me a text that simply said, "You'll regret this." And maybe I would have once.
Before.
Not anymore. Daniel finally texted me 3 days later. Daniel, is this really necessary?
I stared at it for a long time. That was all he had to say.
After everything, that was his response. I didn't answer. I blocked his number. One by one, I blocked them all.
Mom. Dad.
Melissa. No explanations. No goodbyes. I wish I could say they took it gracefully, but they didn't. Jordan kept me updated. They tried to fight the eviction. Said they'd been paying rent, even though they hadn't. Said I was cruel, unfair. But legally, they had no ground to stand on.
Not one.
The 30 days passed, and I never saw them again. Not in person. They packed up and left 2 days before the deadline. Nina drove by once and said there were boxes on the porch, Daniel looking pale and lost, Melissa yelling into her phone. Mom just sat on the steps holding Bella, staring out at nothing.
It should have made me feel something.
But all I felt was relief. The silence afterward was beautiful. I moved into a modern one-bedroom downtown with big windows, white walls, and space to breathe. I bought a proper desk. Set up my art supplies again. I got promoted 3 months later. I was sleeping through the night, waking up happy. I hadn't realized how heavy the air had been in that house until I stepped into fresh air again. I didn't tell anyone at work what happened. I didn't post about it online. I didn't share my side. Let them say what they wanted. That I was selfish.
Cold.
Ungrateful. Because I knew the truth. And I wasn't done yet. Weeks turned into months, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I had my life back. Waking up in my own place, with no screaming children, no guilt-tripping voices, no one barging into my room uninvited. It was like living in a different world. My new apartment downtown was small, but it was mine. Clean, quiet, safe. I could hear myself think again. I could breathe. I focused on my work, poured myself into projects, started painting again on the weekends. Nina and I took more road trips, small ones, just enough to remind me of who I was before all the chaos. I even started sleeping better. Deep, dreamless sleep. I hadn't realized how little rest I'd been getting in that house until I started waking up without a knot in my stomach. They kept trying to reach me, of course. Not directly, those numbers were all blocked, but through old friends, extended family, even through fake email accounts. The messages were always the same. Angry. Blaming. Playing the victim. You tore the family apart. You turned your back on us. You left us with nothing. And, my personal favorite, you owe us. But I didn't respond. Not once. Not anymore. Because they were right about one thing. I had left them with nothing. I had finally given them back the same amount of care, attention, and support they'd shown me all my life. None. And it stunned them. Because they had never expected the quiet one to fight back. They had always counted on me staying silent. Staying useful. There was a moment, maybe 2 months after they moved out, when I ran into an old neighbor in the grocery store. She asked how I was, how my parents were. I smiled and said, I wouldn't know. Her eyes widened. She started to say something, maybe to pry, but I just turned away and kept shopping. I didn't owe explanations. I owed myself peace. One day, Nina brought over a box I had forgotten I left at her place during the move. Inside were old photos, childhood birthday parties, family vacations, school plays. I sat cross-legged on my living room floor flipping through them. There were so many pictures of Daniel. Smiling. Opening gifts. Standing proudly next to our parents. I found only a handful with me in them. In most, I was blurry in the background or cropped halfway out of frame. It hit me harder than I expected. That had always been the story. But now I was writing a new one. I donated the photos. All of them. Then I took out a blank canvas and started painting. Not for work. Not for a client. Just for me. That was the first day I truly felt free. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in Mom's handwriting. I knew I shouldn't open it. But I did. It was long, dramatic, emotional. A full symphony of guilt, blame, regret, and passive-aggressive jabs. You humiliated us. We were only trying to help Daniel. We don't know how to forgive you. And near the end, she wrote, family should forgive. You'll understand when you have children. I laughed out loud reading that. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tossed it in the trash. No response. No anger. Just nothing. Because that chapter was closed. I used to think betrayal had to be big.
Loud.
Obvious. But sometimes it's quiet. It's years of being overlooked, dismissed, used. Sometimes betrayal looks like smiling at you while handing you the bill. Sometimes it sounds like family helps family, right after draining every ounce of your energy. But I've learned something else too. Revenge doesn't have to be cruel. It doesn't have to be loud or violent or messy. Sometimes the best revenge is walking away. Quietly. Fully. Without ever looking back. They wanted me to break. To crawl back. To apologize. To be who I was before. But I didn't. Instead, I built something better. Now I wake up in a place I chose. I pay bills that only cover my life. I go to art events. I paint. I laugh. I create. I breathe. And when people ask about my family, I smile politely and say, it's just me. Because it is. And that's more than enough.